What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. We've got another podcast today with a local Denver real estate investor, local entrepreneur, Tevin Thompson. Super excited to get the conversation started. So with that, Tevin, welcome to the show. Pleasure to meet you, my friend.
How you doing?
Good, man. Thank you. So I guess before we even get started, I know we looked at, a couple questions on my list of kind of what we were going to talk about. First, where are we? Where's this backdrop? Where are you sitting? Where am I sitting? Tell us a little bit about where we are right now.
Yeah, so Hilltop Denver is like one of Denver's most premier neighborhood,
Yeah.
This neighborhood has architecture features, homes that aren't alike, they're different styles. You can get anything that you want in this neighborhood. You got one of the best schools, right? And for me, as a native, this neighborhood was one of those places that was kind of like where the upper echelon lived, So.
And I know from previous conversations, you're talking specifically really Hilltop, right? Hilltop, we're right down the street from Cherry Creek.
Cherry Creek, yes.
Cherry Creek Country Club,
yes.
Shopping. Where we are right here at 275 South Grape, it's an amazing location.
Yeah, this is a gem location. You can get anywhere you really need to. You can go to Target very closely. You can go to any of the
major shopping that
any
you
of the
need.
major shopping downtown. Cherry Creek, it's so close. All the eateries, if you're not someone who wants to cook, maybe you're so busy that you just want to go down somewhere and get something to eat really quick.
That burger shop's right around the corner.
Less than 10 minutes.
So sure. So really, I know that you're from Denver, so I wanted to get your perspective, because I'm not a native. I moved here in 2015. So, the city's changed even from 2015. I've seen the skyline change. There's still cranes stacking up all over the city, building apartments, building sky rises. So really, what is your perspective on the city? How did you enjoy, what was your experience growing up in the city? Tell me a little bit about your history with Denver and kind of what you love about the city.
Yeah, as a native, my parents were separated, so I got to live in Denver, on my dad's side. And then my mom's side was Aurora, so I really got to, have a good mix of things. But I don't really think I understood what Denver was like until you leave, I went south for college, and then that's when I realized, I like the weather of Denver. I love the dry heat.
Not the humidity.
I love the the life, the close proximity to stuff. I don't like.
You studied, so this house, obviously, for those of you who don't know, as we're in this beautiful property, this is a project that you flipped, but before we get to that, you studied architecture in school. Where did you go to school? What led you down the path of architecture? Kind of tell me a little bit about that.
And to be honest, I didn't even know what I wanted to do. I think sometimes we just get clues along the way, you're trying to figure it out just like everybody else. And I think the first person who ever mentioned anything about it was my mom. She kind of saw me just playing. I wasn't an only kid, but my sibling, the age range is so far. Playing by myself basically.
Right.
So playing Legos and I remember my mom came in and she was like, "What are you doing? That's actually fire." She didn't say fire, but
right.
You know what I mean.
She was impressed with whatever you were building.
I'm not so impressed that she went and got the cameras where you take a picture and then you got to fan it out.
Yeah, little Polaroids.
Yeah. I don't know why they don't do that no more.
They still do. People still do. It's still a thing.
Okay. But yeah, she made it something special. So that was the only time I was kind of like, what is this architecture thing?
So she kind of helped you almost ignite the passion for it, because she saw that you were good at it, made you realize that you were good at it.
Yeah, but
and
you still don't know, man. You're still trying to figure things out. And I think, when I applied to go to college, I really didn't know what to do. I knew business. Right?
And where'd you go to school?
Tuskegee University.
Okay, awesome. Okay.
And so they had an architecture program, which was an interest, but I was like, business. Come on, that's what everyone goes there for, right? So I'm trying to get a job, bro. I'm trying to figure something out. I think that this should help, if anything with connects. And that's what I really liked about Tuskegee. So then, graduated. I had an internship with Mortensen. They're a big general contractor here in Denver. And, but I got put on this project in Cherry Creek. It was the Halcyon Hotel.
Okay.
Right? So it was developed by Matt Joblin, right?
Okay.
And the project is a $40 million project, hotel, high-end, very just beautiful. And for this internship, I was able to be a part of these OAC meetings. And that's when I really got to be in the room with the developer and realize like how this thing even worked.
How the whole system's put together a
yeah,
little bit.
Yeah, that whole time. Didn't know.
Yeah.
Didn't know. Did the construction management stuff, learn the skill. But I think that, you know, a part of me, it was for the skill, you know. You know kind of where you got to try to change paths, like something just doesn't feel right. And that's the journey that we're all on, is just trying to figure out how to get there. And then I started doing owner's rep work. So I'm working with organizations like the Food Bank of the Rockies.
Okay.
Have you ever heard of them?
I have. Oh, yeah, of course.
Okay, yeah. They needed a new facility built for them, so I do construction.
We'll actually put a link to the
consulting.
Food Bank of the Rockies if anybody wants to donate. We'll put a link in the description, so any donations are appreciated.
That was a really great organization too. But yeah, we did a new facility for them in Grand Junction, Colorado, and that's just kind of how I do this. But this is like the fun stuff for me. Like,
So that's after college, you know, the transition, you got that job with the general contractor, kind of learned some of that behind the scenes. How old are you now, and how did you get into flipping residential real estate and kind of using that skill set from the commercial side? I also know that you worked on Mission Ballroom. I'd love to talk about that as well, but kind of what was that kind of transition like? Did you always want to work on residential houses, and was that kind of just the learning moment and like, you know, kind of filling in the boxes of knowledge that you needed?
I'll tell you something about residential real estate. You know, when I first, I've always loved houses. I felt like it was something like, I knew I had something, I had some antennas that was just going crazy. Sometimes I'm going over a friend's house and I'm over here just like, you know, thinking about like how.
Interior design.
Yeah, the little details of, you know, or just culture, you know. Denver's it has some pretty diverse, you know, so you can kind of see how other families live in houses that look kind of similar to us.
Yeah.
And so even in architecture school, right, my teacher was like, hey, I just want to let you guys know, there's not really that much money in the residential architecture space. Like, you got to be a big name brand, right, and you got to have very wealthy clientele. And so I was like, okay. They're like, commercials is what we're going to be learning, okay? We're going to be learning how to develop commercial buildings.
Right.
Yeah, that's how you'll get a job. That's how you earn money. Makes sense. But there was still a part of me that was like, man, I still want to do something in the residential space. It's like, it's my way of being like creative. It's my way of like doing something that I like. I walk into these houses and I'm designing them for me. Let's be real. Like, I'm designing them for me, and I'm like, okay, this is
Showing everybody your work,
ready
presentation.
for someone to take on, you know?
Right.
But I'm really designing it thinking like, if I am able to keep it, I want a good quality project. You know what I mean?
So I know that we just kind of touched on the Mission Ballroom. Mission Ballroom is a wonderful, awesome concert venue, downtown Denver. A lot of people go there. Machine Gun Kelly's played there. I mean, some of the biggest artists in the country come to Denver and play at Mission Ballroom. What was it like to work on that project? What was your role in Mission Ballroom? And just kind of fill us in a little bit on like, kind of what that was like.
So I was working with that general contractor, Mortensen, right? And it was like a team of about 4 of us. And, you know, I was on the project engineer side, so just kind of really in that role, you're taking on just all of the materials and you're helping the superintendent kind of put the project together. You're trying to stay ahead of it. You're trying to make sure like the project doesn't slow down, you know? So even with the work that I do right now, I'm always very ahead in time, just making sure that my materials are selected and they come on time. You know, that's a big piece of this.
Of course.
And then just having the construction management background, it helps you figure out how to deal with issues. Every issue will arise. You know, you got to know who to lean on when you don't know, and then you got to know when you can make some things work. You got to make decisions all the time.
So I guess what was the biggest learning experience from working on Mission? Because obviously, like, thousands of people go to that venue every day. You know, that's a pretty substantial, I think, project. Hopefully, you know, I would guess that it provides kind of some pride within you that you worked on that you had a hand in building that. My dad was an iron worker and a steel worker, so he'd show me the bridges and the stuff that, you know, he had worked on when I was a kid. So I'm guessing that there's some kind of, you know, pride of, you know, work or, you know, in that building. So, you know, I guess what's that like a little bit to know that you had such an important role in, you know, a major concert venue in the city?
You know, I honestly think that when I was working on it, it might surprise you what I actually learned on that project. It was how you have to really learn your client to understand what they even need, you know? You gotta learn their business. And that's how you can be like a really good contractor, you know? You're kind of helping them solve questions that they already, you know, you gotta get in their head. So AEG Presents, they will take they're looking for like a facility to where they can, do more concerts. So they look for general contractors who can do big projects like that. And so that's what Mortensen was. They were a big contractor that could facilitate a building for the client's needs.
Interesting. So they wanted a concert venue in Denver. They reached out to you and said, "Hey, let's get this done."
Well, they reached out to the company I was working with, Mortensen. Right. And so, but to be a good contractor, you really have to learn their business, right? So before, in other projects I was doing for that company, I was really just learning like construction methods, sequencing, making sure, you understand planning and how to get things to your job site, right? But then, like, once you get that figured out, you start thinking about, like, well, how are things moving around me? You know what I mean? And so that's when I realized, like, okay, there's people who need buildings done for their own businesses. And if you learn their business, then you can help them do it well. And that's kind of how the food bank came. Like AG Presents. I didn't realize, like, you don't think that they have a lot of concerts. So getting somebody in there, setting up their stage, they got speakers, they got all that stuff, and then leaving for the next town, like that process has to be quick.
Yeah.
And so, you learn about like, okay, how are we going to get these people in, have it a safe environment for everybody?
We got a fire truck in the background, guys. We're going to roll with it, but forgive us for the background noise. We got a fire truck. Hopefully everybody's all good.
So eat me up for that one.
No, it's all good. We're in the city. That's part of what it is, Hopefully everybody's okay, but we're in the city. Fire truck has to go by. You got to do its thing,
I like that. Yeah, if you can't hear a fire truck, then it's probably dangerous. You know what I mean?
You want to hear a fire truck. If you need a fire truck, you want to be able to hear it.
Come on.
So yeah, hopefully everybody's okay. But yeah, nice, beautiful day today in Denver. So
let me go back to your question.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just like you're learning their business, and AG, they needed like to, they just need to be able to move people who run those. I'm trying to say musicians.
Yeah, acts.
Yeah, they need to have acts come in quickly and leave quickly because they're going in so many different cities. They're on tour,
right? Tour buses coming in, and roadies, and
so
everybody.
You're just trying to create a safe environment for them, and it's a lot of safety. I guess that's another thing I really learned on that. Is like how do you have a structure where there's a lot of people who's going to be under the influence in it, So you're almost baby-proofing it as you're kind of working on it, you know what I mean? You're learning about acoustics and how you putting these thick drapes and these wall panels up. You're like, how it helps with your sounds. All of that stuff is, by the way, knowledge that I'm using to build these facilities, these houses that I'm doing, you know what I mean? I'm very conscious of those elements, acoustics, insulation, stuff like that.
So I gotta ask, last question about the Mission Ballroom, but because you worked on it, have you been to a concert there? Have you been to a show there? Have you seen the full live experience? Yes or no?
Yes, I did go. I saw the very first act that came there.
Sick. Okay.
Yeah.
So who was the first act?
That was
It's okay if you don't remember. We can look it up. We can try to look it up.
But they're kind of popular. They're just not my
totally
genre.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. In the businesses, I think that's how the food bank, how I was able to do that facility, because I learned for them, their business is so much again on like their operations. So you're trying to get food in, but food has an expiration date, especially fruit, right? And they're trying to just, one part of their business is not just like feeding people, but it's also trying to keep food from expiring. So that also helps feed people. You know what I mean? There's a lot of food that goes to waste. And so their big thing is like, once we get it in, any donation of anything, we got to get it out quickly.
Right. How do you keep it fresh during the time that they have it?
Yes, and they're very good about that. But what happened is when COVID happened, right? They had another big branch out in Grand Junction, Colorado, which is about 4 hours away, and their facility just could not meet the demand. It just couldn't. Like there's crates of just food in aisles. They got to pick it up and move it to get something else. Yeah, people were just outside waiting. It's a crisis. You can't have that type of stuff. So the Food Bank of the Rockies, they raised some capital, and they did a lot of partnerships to be able to develop that project to feed all of those people. When things get tough like that, there's a 52,000 square foot facility now that has all of everything. Those guys have huge aisles. They can get what they need. 6 stocks before they only had one. So it's like way more efficient. And that's what a lot of businesses are looking for. They're looking for efficiency. So like what I want to turn this business into, right, is like something where I'm trying to figure out like, what do humans want? What do we need? Efficiency, right? Hey, like there's got to be some type of technology that can help, because I think one of the crises that people don't talk about is the family. Family is struggling, you know. If we had something that could help us just be more organized, you know, like
for sure.
A lot of things just in society makes it seem like you gotta just go, and you could sacrifice other things. And you gotta be well-rounded. You know what I mean?
And I think that's another segue actually into the property, into the location that we're filming. I mean, this property that you flipped it here, 275 South Grape. It didn't look like this obviously when you bought it, and now it's waiting for a family. And speaking of, you know, just where we are, Denver, food, you know, most likely, I mean, we'll see a very successful single person hit us up. The house is for sale.
I would take this in a heartbeat.
Exactly. But we are right down the street from some of the best restaurants in the city. So I know we were just talking about the food bank and kind of some of the work that you've done in building that, but now it's kind of shift towards, you know, the Denver restaurant scene, the food scene. That's a really
scene
big
out here in Cherry Creek.
Yeah, it's a big part of the city. So what's your favorite restaurant? You're going out, you and your lady, you're going out to a nice dinner, you're celebrating something special. Where are you going in your city?
I'll just tell you what, like, I like to eat Mexican food, so, you know, that's my thing. I love Mexican food. But I think sometimes you can tell, like, in a certain city, like, you can tell the type of people that you're around, right? When you go out. And Cherry Creek is one of those places where you see people more fit. They look a little happier, you know, more people walking around, you know. It looks like everyone's, you know, comfortable, cool, and swagged out. Like, it's... Let's be real.
It's downtown. It's the nicest part of Denver. Really.
Cherry Creek shopping. That's like, you know,
it's a spot.
Yeah. So
yeah,
you can just tell when you're around. Like, okay, this is a good location. You know.
Sure.
You know.
Did that play a role in kind of the?
Of course.
In this location, yeah, for sure, right?
I think this location is so perfect because it really could work for that element of being efficiency, you know, in our life.
All right, guys, so we are back. Had a little overheat on the camera, so hopefully that file fully recovers. I think it did. So we are back wrapping up this podcast. So I wanted to ask you, Tevin, we're sitting in this beautiful property. You know, it's listed at $1.8 million, 3,800 square feet, 4-bedroom, 4-bath, tons of living space, modern, old school, kind of really diverse mixture of materials, a lot of things that are in the house. If someone was walking through the property, what's something that you think that like an untrained eye or, you know, someone might miss? You know, what's like a little detail that you really think is important to you know, I guess mention?
I think there's a lot of details, right? The layout itself it's so flexible for so many different type of families, different type of buyers in today's market. You know what I mean? If you're a single bachelor, right? You could, or bachelorette, you know, just everyone. If you're working from home, you could take that formal dining room and turn that into like a formal office. You know, you could play around with the layout to make it really work for you. The house is so massive that you could use a lot of these other elements that might be accustomed to your lifestyle. Like for me, I'd add a gym in the basement, you know. There's flexibility for things like that. I think the family that lived here before, they had like this big, you know, in the basement bedroom, there's like a big closet.
Yeah, it's huge.
She had like, it looks like she did some arts and crafts and stuff.
Okay, so that's like a paint
whole wall was just like very organized with just arts and crafts. And if you see a little desk in there, you'll see like, you know, that was where somebody was just hanging out, being creative.
Yeah.
You know, so
it's really like, I guess
this house has a lot of just massive space and opportunity for whatever you want. This is very just updated in general. Like it has solar panels. I think the Denver's guidelines are going solar panels. It's zero scaping. You really won't have to do much maintenance with the front yard. You know, this is turf back here. It's just easy lifestyle. You know, living in the city, you probably have a job where you are very busy, you got a lot of things going on. The last thing you need is to just be doing yard work, right? You want to be able to just enjoy your space. And so you got close proximity to everything where, you know, it's great, but I think there's like a ton of storage in this house.
We were also talking before we started the podcast, I really think it's a big advantage that this house sits on a corner lot, because you're right off Alameda and then you turn on Grape Street and here's your house. You have the little, I'm not sure I should know the terminology, but your little half circle driveway, I guess. Yeah, your half circle driveway.
It's perfect for extra on-street parking.
Exactly. So the flow is really nice, and again, you pull out of the house, you make a right, within 4 minutes, you're at one of your favorite restaurants. So like, I think location-wise, someone who buys this house is going to absolutely love it, because they're not driving through neighborhood traffic, they're not dealing with any of that. They have their car, they have Alameda, and they're at their favorite restaurant or their favorite bar or whatever it might be. So I think they're going to love it. So
and you're an iconic presence to everyone who drives down that street. You know, you're like a big symbol of Hilltop and the prosperity that's in this neighborhood.
Yeah.
Like, this house kind of shows you, like, you know, this is Hilltop at its finest.
So speaking of that, what do you think is next for you after Grape Street? So like, what's the next project that you have in mind? What's your next, what's next for you once this property gets sold for you?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, you know, I got a lot of opportunities, and I think sometimes when you have a lot, it can you got to be intentional about the things that you do, because, you know, you don't want to go back down a path that you don't necessarily want to go down, you know? Time is something that we don't have. We don't know what that hourglass looks like above our heads, you know. So it's kind of
a finite resource.
Just make sure that your next move is your best move. You know, like it's chess. It's you know, strategic.
So is that your way of kind of answering that? You're still in that kind of figuring out mode of what you want to do next, based off, you know, like you said, that kind of being a chess move, and, you know, not wanting to make the wrong play. You know, so you're just basically figuring out after this sells, okay, what am I going to move on to next?
Exactly. Like you have to be able to take, you know, some of the things that you've learned and regroup so that you can really come at it even better next time, you know?
Right.
And that's with anything. That could be with the food bank type of projects. It can be with these, you know, luxury flips. It can be with anything like that. I mean, I really want to try to dig into new builds, but I'm just very interested trying to figure out how to solve that problem of, like, making our lives more efficient. Like, that's what it's coming down to.
I know you just mentioned new builds, but I think there is something special where people take properties that are older, that needed some love. Maybe someone lived here for 50 years and they passed away, or they sold it, or whatever it might be, but they didn't care for it. They didn't bring it up to modern times, but you have this building, the structure that was built in 1962, 1961, you know, years and years and decades of history and style.
It was designed by an architect. So when you have a house that's designed by an architect, they think through a lot of elements, and they think about lifestyle, and they're really thinking about the future, right?
Right.
But today's developments, you know, a lot of the newer builds, they're based off of more an economic thing.
Right.
So
how quickly can they build them?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
But this is when you have a house that's designed by an architect, you get features that are very just rare, different, and very well thought out.
For sure.
Like the fact that this house sits the way that it does on this large lot is because the architect was intentional about, you know, not being too close to the street, not being too close to, you know, the public. It's so perched up.
The position.
Even it being perched up, like, that's an architect intentionally trying to make sure it sits higher and above. You know, again, it was that iconic image as you're driving past it, and then just, like, you know, the details about the overhang that I was telling you earlier.
Right.
Like, you know, when you are trying to allow as much natural light in, because that's where you live. Light does a lot of good benefits for us. So you want to let it in, but you also don't want to get baked by it, right? So the fact that this overhang sits the way it does, that's an architect really defining, like, how much of an overhang do I need to keep this house protected?
It's all thoughtful.
Very thoughtful.
It's all thoughtful.
That's why I'm like, this is so special. This is a special house. So
That's
you
awesome.
don't want to overestimate those things.
I've been here. I've had the chance to be here a few times, and it's a beautiful property. So fantastic job with it. I always like to end my interviews, my podcasts, with kind of a fun question. So to wrap up the interview, I'd love to know, you know, for your, you know, what's your dream car? So I know we both like cars. We talked about that a little bit. So in terms of, you know, when you hit a certain level of success, when you can look back and say, oh wow, I really want to, you know, treat myself well. I want to surprise myself with something. I don't want to surprise myself, but, you know, get myself something that I've earned for years of hard work, and after reaching a certain level, what would that kind of vehicle be for you?
I like the company that I worked with to collab. It's called God dang, I can't even think of this company name right now. I think it's called Elite Transportation. No, it's called Elite Transportation and Security, right?
Okay.
I met this guy named geez, man, I really you have to edit this video. He's gonna be like, dude, I met you last week or a month ago, but he has this company where he it's like a very luxury type of rideshare, right?
Okay.
He is a retiring FBI detective, right? So he's thinking about safety all the time. And his thought was, you know, when did we get comfortable with going to an airport and letting somebody we've never met pick us up, and then now they know that we're not going to be home, you know? Like, when do we think that was just a normal thing to do? And so his comes with, you know, you ride in style and you get to choose any type of vehicle that you want. But then your driver can probably whip somebody's ass if
Interesting. So that level of success, you wouldn't even want to drive your own car. You want to have someone drive.
Because I'm trying to be efficient, you know. I need to be in the back, like, you know, figuring things out.
So what about my body? You know, what about something, you know, 7 Series? Yeah. You know, with the new big screens, you know, the new 7 Series with the 20-inch, whatever, LED screens.
I've always wanted a Porsche, just in a car. I like the body of it, you know, Porsche 911, black car with red interior.
Okay.
I think there's something very elegant and beautiful about that, but yeah, man, to not have to drive is great.
No, I think that's a fantastic answer. I mean, I love cars so much, I almost don't even sometimes take the time to think about if I got to that level of success, you know, what I'd be doing to not actually drive, you know? So, like, very interesting, even different perspective from the question.
And even riding with Everett, that's his name.
Okay.
Everett, he has, like, the security. You can get multiple cars, right? So now you're riding through the city looking like the president, like somebody very professional.
Someone very
all
important
these black
rolling down Great
vehicles,
Street
they're
right
like,
now.
what's going on? Who is this guy? You know, it kind of adds a presence before you even arrive.
Totally, no, that makes sense.
That's kind of, you know.
So then you'd have that for the work week, and then on the weekends you'd have like the GT3,
a car that no one knows
GT4.
about, so I can just enjoy my life. Yeah, of course.
No, that sounds pretty perfect. Well, Tevin, thank you so much for this podcast.
I appreciate
a lot of fun. Great conversation. And I hope to continue to work together, grow together, look forward to seeing what you do next, and really thank you so much for the podcast. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Just sat down, had a great conversation with local investor Tevin Thompson. Hit the DM if you guys have any questions. Hit the subscribe button, hit the like button if you guys haven't already, and also hit the comments. What do you guys think of this property? What did you think of the video? Much love, everybody. See you guys later.